Hey, good day everyone, and welcome to the day one training. Now, I've already dropped this on write ups, but so many of you kept complaining I should do an audio, you prefer the audio. So, I decided to do a screen recording instead of the audio because I would have to show you some pictures, which means audio cannot suffice. All right. So let's get right into the business. As you already know, my name is Mary. Okay, I'm from Bayelsa State for those of you who don't know. And you already have a brief CV of me. So let's just dive in. All right, for this training, since they're already written down here, I'm just going to be reading through. Okay, I'll just read through and explain as I read through. All right. So after this training, you should be able to start your own profitable snail farm, right? And today, the first on our list is how to identify different species. Now, before we do that, I would like you to know that as farmers in Africa, West Africa to be precise, we deal mostly on AM and AA. AA for those in Ghana, AM and AM for those in Nigeria and other parts of Africa, right? Now, so we're going to stick mainly to the AA and the AM, but mostly the AM, right? Because my Ghana friends are not much, and I have a friend in Ghana that I refer my Ghana students to. So let's just stick with my Nigeria and other parts of the African continent. Okay, let's dive in. All right, some persons are asking if they can start snail farming business with the snails that they picked from the bush or the ones that they bought from the market. And my answer to that question is no. You cannot start your business with snails that you bought from the market, from the roadside, or the ones you picked from the bush. No, there are different sources to which you can get your breeding stock from, but the best of them still remains the ones that you get from snail farmers. And by snail farmers, I mean people who are into captured snairy, people who are training snails. Those are the people we call snail farmers, right? Now, the reasons why you can't buy snails from market women or from people who picked it from the bush or even the ones you picked yourself. The reason why you can't use those ones is because number one, you don't know their age. Okay, you don't know if they are at point of lay level. You don't know if they have lived for up to 5 years, because snails can live for up to 12 years. Okay, and just like every other animal, the more they advance in age, the lesser the egg production rate. All right, the number of eggs they produce in a year will drop as they go further in life. So you don't know if the snail you're buying is up to 6 or 7 years old. Okay, that is one. That's another one. Then another thing is, you can't just pick a snail from the bush. Sorry, let me put my phone on silent so this sound does not keep disturbing us. Okay, what was I saying? You can't just pick a snail from the bush, okay, or buy a snail from the market that you don't even know the source that the snail is coming from. You can't just pick it from anywhere and bring it to your farm and expect the snail to behave. These snails are used to life in captivity, especially the ones that you picked around your house or the ones that somebody picked from the bush. They are used to life in captivity, meaning when you bring them to your snail pen, it will be very uncomfortable for them. Snails are naturally wild animals that like to move freely. Okay, so you now bringing them to come and cage them in one place, most of them will die, most of them will be dormant, some of them, in fact, they won't even eat your food. Most of them will not eat your food because they are not used to all this cucumber, tomato, watermelon that you are giving to your snails. Only God knows what they eat inside the bush. But we got to know about snail feeds while training them, okay, while giving them different things that we have access to. The ones in the bush don't have access to such things, so we don't really know what they eat in the bush. So in order to have a smooth business, you work with the ones that are already in snail farms, okay? those snails are already in snail farm. Those snails are used to eating the kind of food you want to give to them. So your business will be smooth. You won't have issues of my snails are dying, or my snails are not eating the food I'm giving them, my snails are not producing, my snails are dormant. You won't be having all those issues. Okay, so those are some of the reasons why the best option is to buy from snail farmers. And like I said, snail farmers are those who are training snails. Okay, like you now that you're about to start snail farm business, you are a snail farmer. All right. Okay, that aside, now I'm going to show you some species of snails so you can identify them. Like I said, if you're in Ghana, you train the achatina. Now this name, some people have argued that it is akatina. Some say it's achatina. Both of them are correct, because let's not disturb ourselves with name. What we want is for them to produce eggs and for us to make money with it. So name or no name, you can call it achatina, you can call it akatina. Me, I interchange, I use all of them. She is still giving me money, and that's the only thing that is important. All right, then for those who are in Nigeria, it's the AM, which is the Achatina marginata. Okay, now we do mostly AM here in Nigeria and other parts of Africa, because majority of people who go into snail farming, especially those who go into large scale snail farming, they export out of the country, out of the continent, and mostly to the US. And the AA is considered as a pest in the US. They won't even allow you export it down there. Okay, the US government will not allow you to import such things into their country. So we go mostly with the AM. All right. So moving on, look at this picture that I have on the screen. The first on our list is the Achatina. Now, there are some things you need to know about the achatina, so that when you just see a snail, you will know that this is it. Okay, you will not be sending me pictures every now and then and say, please, which one is this? Please, which one is this? Now, the achatina has a tiger-like skin. Okay, the shell of the AA looks like a tiger skin, and it has a pointed apex. What is apex? Apex is this bottom. It has a pointed bottom. Okay, next on our list is the Achatina marginata. The apex is pink, usually pink. Okay, and the apex is round. All right, unlike the AA, the AM, the apex is round and it's pink. But we still have other AMs that whose apex are white. Okay, that one we call them the AMO, because for AMs we have AMS and AMO. Okay, I don't want you to worry yourself too much with that. We deal more with the AMS, and the full meaning of AMS is Achatina marginata sotoralis. Okay, and the full meaning of AMO, which is the one that has white apex, is Achatina marginata ovum. Okay, they are the same, both the number of eggs they lay and everything, they are the same. It's just this coloration. Okay, now the next on our list is the Achatina folica. It also has a pointed apex, but it's smaller in size, very small in size, and it looks a bit long. Okay, longish, so to say. All right, let's move on. Now, the best way for you to know and identify a snail is for you to just pick whatever snail you can lay your hands on. Wash that snail very well and turn it. If it has a tiger skin, you will know it is AA. If it has a pink or white apex, you will know it's AM. If it is smallish and then also has a pointed apex, but not with the tiger skin, you know it is AF. Okay, so that's basically how you can identify your snails. Now look at the clearer picture here. This is what the AA look like. If you look at the skin, you will see that it looks like tiger skin. Okay, let's move on. Now this is what the AM looks like. Look at the pointed the round pink apex here. All right. So that's how to identify the AM. Okay, moving on. This is the AF. Like I said, it's smaller, it's longish, okay, and the apex is also pointed. Okay, so for today we're going to treat mainly the AM. Here is a clearer picture as well, and this is the one I know most of you are seeing because this is the one that's rampant in Nigeria. Okay, it has a pink apex, and like I said, if it is the AMO, this apex will be white, but this is the Achatina marginata sutoralis, simply put AMS. Okay, and you can just call it AM too, no need to add the S too. Okay, and it also has a pink opening. What do I mean by pink opening? This is the pink opening. Okay, so two ways you can identify your AM. It has a pink bottom, which is the apex, and it has a pink opening. Okay, those are the easiest ways to identify your AM snails. Okay, now that we have had that, let's get it out of the way and move on. If you don't understand, replay the video. In fact, I even like the idea of this video, so it's even easier for you to replay and understand whatever it is you didn't get the first time. Okay, so right now we'll see the types of snail farming that we have, and we have basically two types of snail farming. Okay, one is the intensive system, which is mostly done indoors, and the second one is the semi-intensive system, which is the one that is done mostly outdoors. Okay, now let's take a look at the intensive system first. Now, in this intensive system, the snails are managed intensively in terms of food, water supply, and other management practices. What do we mean? Intensive system utilizes small spaces, hence most ideal for people with little space available to them. Okay, that can be within or around your house or around your vicinity, around your compound. Okay, now examples of intensive housing systems are cage, hutch boxes, trench pens, drums, or tires. Now note that tires and drums are not usually recommended due to the fact that they have very little space, so snails can get compacted. It's not recommended for commercial purpose. You can use them for maybe trial. You just want to have 10, 20 snails and just try out this knowledge you've gotten. But if you want to start up snail farming as a business, even if it's just a business by the side, the least number of snails you should start with is 100. Okay, so that in the next 2-3 years you've started making millions. Believe me, because you know why? Snails are not like other livestock farming that you have to be buying the parents every time. For snails, let's say you buy point of lace, 100 point of lace. Now the minimum AM can give you is 30, right? Let's factor in the 20% mortality that we talked about, because no matter how good you are in snail farming, some will still die. No matter how good you are, that is just nature. It's just natural for snails. Some will still die. So if you see any dead snail, whether at egg stage, some might not hatch from their eggs. Some might die at hatchling stage. Some might die at point of lay, and different stages. Okay, so when you see dead snails in your snail pen, you shouldn't think that you're not doing things right. The only time you will be bothered is when the death rate is getting too much. Okay, you are expected to expect a mortality rate of at least 20% of your overall production. Okay, so when you go into snail farming, let's say with 100 pieces like I talked about now, and they give you like 30 each, that's how many? 30 times 10, 300, right? Times 100, that's 3,000. So if we factor in the 20% mortality rate, please do the calculation with me. 20% of 3,000, 10% is 300, 20% is 600. So 600 minus 3,000, that is 2,400. So you have 2,400 snails that will grow into point of lay in the next 6 to 7 months. And those ones will start producing for you too. Do you see that? So snail farming makes you a millionaire in a short period. And you that is going into snail farming, you can start small, but you must bear in mind that you would expand, because snails will not stop giving birth. They will continue giving birth. This 2,400 that we just calculated, if you're keeping them again for another 6 months, those ones will grow up to point of lay and will start laying again. Do you understand? So the cycle just continues. So what you do is you just pick the big ones and go and sell. The ones that are attaining point of lay will keep laying for you. So you will never buy snails again. The first time you buy snails is the last time you will buy. The ones that you bought will continually keep producing for you. All right. So now here are some pictures that I will show you concerning intensive snail farming. All right, the ones that you can easily have at the back of your house. Don't mind me, they are quite plenty, but I'm just trying to give you different options. You can pick any of them. Okay, this is a trench pen. Okay, as you can see, this is just beside someone's house. Okay, and maybe this is the one that they just started building. All these are trench pens. I'm just showing you now. This is another trench pen. This one now is a major farm on its own level. Do you understand? It's a major farm on its own level. If they tell you that this small farm has up to 20,000 snails, you won't even believe it. All right. So all these are, now look at this. This is even in an interlocked compound. So you can have your snail pen anywhere. Some people even do it at their veranda. Some do it at the back of their house. Anywhere, any little space you have, you can. But bear in mind that you will expand in no time. It's a business now, and you should be happy that your business is growing and needs expansion. Okay, all right. So these are the separate different options we have. Right, this is the drum method I told you about. You can use this, but it's not really advisable for commercial purpose. Okay, because look at it now, this drum cannot take money. Okay, now we have the tire system as well. Okay, all these are different patterns. Look at this. This is just beside someone's window, and the good thing is snails don't smell, they don't make noise, so they won't disturb you at all. Okay, all right. So these are just different snail houses that you can use in the intensive system. Okay, the intensive system. Okay, that's what we have for the intensive system. Now we'll move to, there is no way you cannot do any one of these. You can just pick one of these and start with. Okay, so let's proceed. Now the soil of your snail pen should be sterilized. I believe by now all of you must have received your ebook. How to sterilize your soil is inside that ebook. The best way to sterilize your soil is to heat it on fire. Okay, heating it helps to kill any kind of insects or insect eggs that are in the soil, so that they will not come up tomorrow to come and worry your snails. All right, so you sterilize your soil when setting up your intensive system, okay, of farming, especially if you want to incubate your eggs. That incubating pen is even more, the sterilization is more needed there, but you must sterilize your soil, no matter, even if it's for incubation, if it's for your hatchlings, if it's for your breeder pens, you must sterilize your soil. Like I said, you learn this in the ebook. Now kindly note or bear in mind that in this intensive system, which is the indoor method, the snail farmer, which is you are solely responsible for the daily management of the snails. Reason being that they cannot move, they can't feed themselves. So you're responsible for their feeding, you're responsible for cleaning the pen, you're responsible for serving them water, watering the soil, watering the snails, watering the mulching materials. We'll talk about mulching materials shortly, okay, and other routine duties that you need to carry out. But the good thing is that these routine duties we're talking about, depending on the size of your farm, you can do it in less than 30 minutes, which is why we said anybody can go into snail farming. Okay, like me, I'm a worker. I go to work from Monday to Friday, and I still attend to my farm. Okay, and on top of that, I still do snail farm trainings as well. Okay, it can be exhausting sometimes, but that's because I'm doing trainings added to the other two things I'm doing. But what I'm saying is, it is quite easy. Sometimes I'm not even in town for days. My husband will just go and feed them, and we're good because it doesn't take much time to feed or water them. Okay, all right. Now we're going to get into the semi-intensive system. Now this system is also known as the free range system. The semi-intensive system supports snails that to breed as if they are in the rainforest, okay, as if they are in the bush, where they will feel so free moving about. Then that's with the help of the greenhouse system. If you have not seen the greenhouse, don't worry, you'll see it shortly. In the greenhouse system, I will teach you how you're going to plant crops that will make them feel as if they are in the bush. That is why in a space of like half plot of land, you can contain up to 60,000 to 80,000 snails in a half plot of land space. Excuse me, can contain up to 80,000. All right, sorry about the hiccup. Let's continue. Okay, as I was saying, it can contain about 80,000, 60,000 to 80,000 snails in a space of half plot of land. Okay, and that's because they will feel like they are in their natural habitat. Okay, now the area of farm in this system is heavily planted with crops and vegetables, which is what I said I'm going to teach you how to do in the subsequent videos. Okay, you plant them heavily with crops, okay, like dwarf plantains, dwarf bananas. Now dwarf plantain and dwarf bananas, because you don't want them to grow too much to the height of the greenhouse roof. Okay, now they also serve as extra shade to the snails underneath. Okay, you plant crops like cocoyam, pawpaw, lettuce, cabbage, etc., etc. Okay, and this serves as covering, like I said, to regulate the temperature in the snail pen. Like you already know, snails are cold-blooded animals that would like cold places. They like cold places. So even as you water them during the sun or during the day when it's sunny, they like to hide under these shade fruits and crops. All right. Now the main advantage of this system is that it is not too expensive to maintain. Why? Because of these fruit crops that you've planted heavily, you will still you will still support with concentrates, which are the formulated feeds and calcium. But for um watermelon, cucumber, fresh tomatoes, those ones are not too necessary, because the fruits that you have inside these houses are enough for the snails. Okay, so you spend less in feeding your snails in this semi-intensive system, unlike the intensive system where you will have to provide everything, all of their feeds. Okay, this one you've already planted things, so they will just eat from there. All right, note, in this semi-intensive system, you give the snails some feed supplies, which is what I just talked about. Outside of the natural things that you've planted for them, you give them concentrates. Okay, you give them calcium, very, very important. Right, now, although the major disadvantage in is the possibility of attacks by snail predators or enemies such as ants. Now this is mostly for a fenced free range system. Like if you didn't properly fence it well, you will learn detailed construction in this training. Okay, in subsequent videos you learn how to construct them details. I will always say every other pattern of snail house you can do it yourself after watching these detailed trainings. But for the greenhouse system, no matter how detailed it is, I would advise that you get extra hand, get professionals to do it, because it is better to get it right the first time than to do a shabby job and then start using hundreds of thousands uh, to rectify a mishap. Okay, and that's because the free range system is adequately protected, right? Okay, you are protecting this free range system adequately by getting professionals to do it for you in the first place. I've seen free range system or greenhouse system where people use cement bags or beans bags to sow it. I'm like, what is this? First of all, the snails won't be able to breathe fine. There are specific netting systems that needs to be used that can allow a specific amount of rain to come into the greenhouse, but not all, and also allow a certain amount of sun to penetrate for photosynthesis so that the crops that you've planted inside the greenhouse can grow well. So if you don't use the right material, you might just end up spending millions for nothing. Okay, now see some of the greenhouse systems that I talked about. These are some of half-fenced systems. Okay, these are half-fenced systems that I talked about. Okay, this is one, this is another. Now these ones are more prone to infestation, because as you can see, the top is not covered, it's not well covered, it's just covered with plantain leaves, meaning any flying insect can get into your pen and damage your snails. So the best one I recommend is the full greenhouse system. Look at the picture you have on the screen, the full greenhouse system. This is what I'm talking about. This is sitting on a half plot of land, and this half plot can carry up to 80,000 snails. Imagine. So this is basically for people who are going into major commercial snail farming. All right, but mind you, all of you who are starting small, you get to this place in no time. Just give yourself the next 2-3 years, you will get to this point. Because like I said, snails will keep producing for you. They don't stop producing, even though as the years go by their production rate will drop, but they don't stop. And the ones they are giving birth are also giving birth, just like that. The cycle continues. So you get to this point in no time. Okay, so bear in mind that you are all millionaire farmers as you're starting. You might not start off as millionaire farmers, but you get there. Just be patient and believe in the process and be dedicated. That's just it. Okay, now this is what the inside of the greenhouse looks like. Look at this corner. Look at this corner. You will see this is like the walkway, and it's all round. If you look at it, it's round. Okay, there's a walkway, and there's another walkway even at the center of it. Okay, so that you don't step on the snails while you're walking, because this place is like a natural habitat for them. They move about freely. So if you're walking on top of this or inside this greenhouse anyhow, you might just end up damaging your snails. So you do a walkway. Don't worry, like I said, there's a detailed training on how to construct all of this. Now let's go into some certain questions that people like to ask. Number one, can intensive housing system be used for commercial snail farming? The answer is yes. Okay, intensive system can be used for commercial snail farming, but you have to multiply the pens, okay, or the cages that you're using. But the maintenance cost of it will be very high compared to greenhouse system. Now somebody might ask, can't a greenhouse be smaller? Of course it can. Depends on your budget. It can be smaller. Okay, it can definitely be smaller. Now question number 2, which system is best suited for commercial snail farming? I've already said that the extensive semi-intensive system. Okay, semi-intensive system is the best, and this is because of the outside external feeds that you're planting inside the pen. Okay, and also substituting with internal feeds, which are the concentrate and the calcium. Okay, that's majorly the best. It's not as if you cannot do it with concrete pens, but like I said, doing your commercial snail farming, that's major commercial snail farming with concrete pens, will cost you more. The money that you will use to build one greenhouse that will contain this 60 to 80,000 snails that I'm talking about, you would have to multiply it by like 3 before you build concrete pens that will contain that same amount of snails. All right, so it's much cheaper using the greenhouse system. All right, question 3, does semi-intensive require artificial hatchery, or you just monitor and sort? Well, it doesn't really require artificial hatchery. Okay, but if the eggs are noticed, like in this semi-intensive system, especially the greenhouse system, they lay their eggs. Okay, you don't go and sort the eggs in there. You don't. It is so easy that even when you want to water them, there are sprinklers installed on it. You just on a switch and the sprinklers will do their job, and you off it and you go. So one person can even manage up to 3-4 greenhouses. It's quite easy. All right, now what were we talking about? They lay their eggs by themselves. They hatch their eggs by themselves, just like in the forest. Now, the good thing is you are there to help the process. If while you're walking around your farm, if you see or notice any egg that is in the surface, you pick it up and go and incubate it yourself. Okay, other than that, however, if the soil is ideal, they are supposed to lay inside of the soil. If your soil in the snail farm is ideal, they're supposed to lay inside the soil so you won't even see it outside. Question 4. Are snails carnivorous? Yes, they do predate if they lack certain necessities, okay, like calcium. Now, the snail egg is full of calcium. Snail shell is also full of calcium. So, if your snails are lacking calcium, the bigger ones can prey on the eggs, the snail eggs, and they can also eat the young hatchlings as well, because those ones are still very small. More so, mature snails can predate, like I said. Hence, there is a need for you to separate the small ones from the big ones, especially in intensive system. If it is intensive system, you have to separate your hatchlings from the growers. Okay, keep them somewhere else. And this is called cannibalism in snailry, okay? And as they get mature, you can keep them together with the breeders. But when they are just coming up, especially at the hatchling stage, it's preferable you keep them in another pen. Okay, like from 4 months to 6 months up, you can bring them back to join the mature snails. Another question: what makes snails bloat? Okay, answer is contaminated water. Okay, majorly contaminated water. If your water is overly treated, there are sources on how to get water. I'll explain that shortly. Now, okay, let's just get into it. How to get good water for your snails. First of all, the water has to be free of chemicals. Okay, it has to be clean and it has to be natural. Okay, it has to it doesn't have to have it doesn't have to be high in chlorine. Okay, because chlorine fights against snails. Now, what are the sources of which you can get water for your snails? River, well, and rainwater. You can also use your tap water if it is not heavily treated. All right. Now, 6. Can I feed my snails with cooked food? Yes, but you must avoid sodium chloride, which is table salt. You must not add salt to their food because salt dehydrates them, and snails need a lot of water. So imagine giving them something that would dehydrate them. They would die very fast. Okay. Now, a drainage system has to be built around the pen, wherein you have water and condemned oil. Some people have been asking me, how do you ward off ants? This is how you ward off ants. Don't worry, in the subsequent videos, there is a video series that will come up, I think, in the day 5 or day 6. But what I want you to do is just to watch every video, okay? Watch every video. You will see details of how to build a drainage pen where you put in water and condemned engine oil. Okay, you can have it replaced as well with maybe kerosene. Okay, and as a matter of fact, the oil should be much. Okay, you could put something to act as a form of covering on top of the drainage, like to cover it so that rainwater does not just overflow the drainage, the trench pen, and just spill off the whole the whole either condemned oil or kerosene that you put in there. So it will be nice if you have something to cover it up. Okay, all right, moving on, let's talk about feeds a little. Now, feeding plays a significant role in the life of every animal. This includes man also, like you all know. Now, like other nocturnal animals, snails are mostly active during the night. That is to say, their reproduction, feeding, and other behavioral activities is at its peak during the night when everywhere is dark. Okay, so the time of feeding has to be during the night. When you feed them any other time, it won't impact them too much because they are not too active during those times. If you are somebody who follows my instructions very well and you do your snail pen very well, you put in your mulching materials, when you open your snail pen, you will see that you won't even see any snail. They will always be hiding under those mulching materials because snails like dark places. Okay, so now, land snails are normally more active after dusk, which is at night, which is when the ground is usually damp, and that makes it the best time to feed them. That is why we keep telling you that the best time to feed your snails is from the hours of 5 to 7 p.m. Now, you are just dropping the feed does not necessarily mean they will come out that moment and start eating. Now, you're dropping the feeds that time so that as at when they come out to eat, the food will still be fresh for them to eat. Okay, that's why I say 5 to 7 p.m. Right, and you're not supposed to go back in the night to go and check if they are eating. You don't have to disturb your snails that much. The only 2 times you check your snails are in the morning when you're removing the leftover feeds from their pen, and in the evening when you're dropping feeds for them. Okay, don't go every now and then and be opening their pen. You're disturbing them and it can stunt their growth. Some people once asked if noise affects snails. Not necessarily. Snails are deaf, okay, and they are usually blind. So brightness, but they are very sensitive to vibrations. So those of you who are asking if you can have your snail house close to your generator, the smoke or the sound will not affect them, but the vibration of the generator can affect them and it will stunt their growth. Okay, it will mean they will have to be always active, meaning they don't have time to rest, meaning it will stunt their growth. Okay, all right, so snails that are fed from 6 p.m. will definitely record higher significant growth as against snails that are fed from 8 a.m. Okay, and their most preferred diets include unripe pawpaw, that's the pawpaw fruits, and also the pawpaw leaves though, watermelon, cucumber, bitter leaf, fresh tomatoes, moringa leaves, formulated feeds, and calcium. Those are the things you feed your snails with. Don't worry, we have detailed explanations in the course of this training. And also, they show a distinct preference to moist feeds, such as powdered snail feeds, which are moist with water, okay, juicy fruits, leaves, and vegetables. So when you're giving them some concentrate feeds, you moist it with water. I didn't say waterlogged though, just a little moist. And if you're not moistening them, if you don't want to add a little water to moisten them, that means you add water in another tray very close to the one that you have the formulated feed, so that they can also drink water. Okay, I'll show you pictures of all of that too. Now, the habit or behavior of snails feeding at night is adaptive in nature, as it protects them from dehydration and possible predators that are usually available during the day. Hence, presenting feeds to your snails at night enhances their food intake and their overall growth. More so, snails that are fed at night consume more feed than those that are fed in the morning, as the feeds are still very fresh. Meaning, if you are to drop your feeds during the day, like morning or afternoon, and they are supposed to come out at night to come and eat, the rate to which they will eat the food will not be much because the food is no longer too fresh. Okay, now, meaning dropping your feeds from that, let's say 6 p.m. downward, they have more nutrients in those feeds as at the time they are coming out to eat at night. Okay, and this is because they eat more diets or feeds as they are fed at their preferred time, and the time they prefer is at night. And since you cannot be coming out at night to feed them, you feed them very close to the time they are supposed to come out and eat, so that you go and rest while they come out and do their thing. Okay, now it must be noted that feeds are grouped into different classes according to the snail requirements. it is not wise to have your snails feed on only one or two particular class of feeds. There must be a certain percentage or a certain ration that is present in different classes of feeds. Please reduce that your noise. Let's now see the different classes of feed that snails need for their overall growth and nutritional balance. Okay. Now we must also state here that snail feeds are not limited to natural feeds alone. Like we have the fruits, the vegetables, the leaves, which most people or snail farmers have adopted in recent years. There are also formulated feeds which contain 80% of the nutritional requirements for snails. And also it helps to boost their overall growth and well-being. Okay, so meaning as a commercial farmer, you need both the natural fruits, the leaves, and then concentrate and calcium, most importantly. Now, categorizing or grouping this class of foods, we have the carbohydrate. Just as humans need energy, snails also need energy, right? Carbohydrates are mostly known as energy giving foods, right? Okay, and that goes for snails too. It gives them carbohydrate as well. Now this helps to provide the snails energy for growth and other activities. We understand that snails love roaming about even when they are confined, right? But they still need to move, which means they need energy. They need a good amount of energy supply so that they can be moving about. And what are the things that can give them this energy? They are tuber crops like cocoyam, sweet potato, yam, cassava, and the rest of it. Like I said, these ones must be cooked. These ones must be cooked, but you must not include salt. Okay, you must not include salt. All right, more so peels from these tubers can also suffice for it, like peels of cocoyam, peels of cassava, peels of plantain. You can also use such um as a energy source, but they will have to be grinded. Okay, maize can also suffice, millet can suffice as well as energy source for your snails. However, we must note that most of these classes of feed has measurements and proportions required for each of the snail sizes, which is the hatchlings have their own proportion that is required, growers have theirs, and the adults also have their own proportion that is required. Okay, now the energy that is measured in kilograms. Hatchlings will need about 2,200. Growers will need the same 2,200, but for the adults about 2,400. Okay, 2,400 in kilograms. That is in their energy food. Okay, let's just move to the protein. Now the reason why I'm not dwelling too much on this is because wherever you're going to buy it, those people have already done that work for you, so you don't need to start doing the measurements for yourself. If you're buying it from mills in the market, they have the proportions made already. If you're buying it from snail farmers, they have the proportions made already. Yours is just to pay, collect, and go and feed your snails. All right, so let's talk about protein. Protein is also very needed for your snails. Protein is obtained from both animals and plant sources in relation to snails. Okay, it is required for their growth, their maintenance of their body parts, and for egg production. Now the major sources of protein are soya bean, you can call it soybean or soya beans, soya bean residue, fish meal, meat meal, groundnut cake, pawpaw leaves, soya bean meal, and then palm kernel cake, which is the one we call the PKC, palm kernel cake. Now please note, like I said, salt must be avoided in either of these sources. You must not add salt to anything. Now some people will say the groundnut cake. I've talked about groundnut cake, which is the kuli, right? Groundnut cake. Some people say it has some level of salt now, but it's minimal. It is highly minimal. Okay, now protein need for different sizes per required measurement also varies for each snail, like the one we talked about in the carbohydrate. All right, now hatchlings will need about 26% of protein, growers will need about 24% of protein, And then the adult snails will need from 24 to 26% of protein in their feeds. Like I said, you don't need to bother yourself measuring these measurements. They're already done for you. Okay, now let's talk about minerals. This is where calcium needs come into play. Snails need regular supply of calcium and phosphorus. Now, calcium is the one I told you would help them produce more eggs, okay? It helps them produce more eggs. It strengthens their shell so that when they fall, maybe they fall from a higher height, like majority of them climb to the lid of the snail pen. When you come to open the lid, definitely they will fall and possibly hit on either sharp objects or on top of other snails. And if their shells get cracked, calcium is what will help those shells to repair itself. And if those shells are not repaired, it also stunts the growth of the snail as well. Okay, now minerals in the tissue and aid the digestive system and transformation of feed to release energy. So some major sources of calcium include snail shells, limestone, bone meal, oyster shell, etc. There are several others, but these are the major ones. More so, special formulated feed is an encompassing source of calcium and other nutritional requirements for snails. Okay, a major deficiency in the lack of calcium in snails can lead to malformation of the shell, thereby making the snail to turn whitish. If your AM starts turning white, you should know that your snails lack calcium. Now, with most of the times, we don't just give them calcium directly. We mix it in their fruits, on their leaves, and also on the soil. Okay, they absorb it from the soil as well. Now, let's talk about vitamins. Vitamins are also very essential, okay, to your snails and must consist as part of the feeds. Minerals also help for the maintenance. Vitamins rather also helps for the maintenance of health and the growth of the snails. And without them, snails will not be able to utilize their feed intake. They also need vitamins to eat very fine. Okay, hence watermelon is most recommended as vitamins in support of especially formulated feeds. Other major sources of vitamins for snails are green plants, fruits, which includes pawpaw, watermelon, garden eggs, tomatoes, etc. Okay, there is no measurement, however, for these vitamins intakes. You can give them as much as possible. Okay, but avoid acidic leaves and pesticides that overtakes leaves, which is why when you're giving your fruit, your snails any food, you must wash them properly under clean water. Wash them properly because most of these leaves, insects have laid their eggs on them, and if you don't look very well, you won't even see them. Now you go and drop those leaves or those fruits for your snails. They are thinking they are eating leaves, but they are ingesting poisonous things because those eggs will definitely hatch in that pen and damage your snail farm. So you must wash whatever you're giving to them thoroughly. The only thing you will not wash is the concentrated feeds because those ones are in powder form. You won't wash them. Now let's talk about fat and oil. They are also very good sources of energy for snails, just like carbohydrate. Fat and oil, the sources include the palm kernel cake we talked about, and then palm nuts as well. Okay, now water. Water is an essential part of every living thing, like you already know, humans inclusive. Now, most of the water needs of snails ought to be supplied from the soil, which is why we water the soil every day. If it is during dry season, you water it morning and evening. But like now that rains have started, I don't know when you'll be listening to this audio, but when the rain starts falling, you can water it just once in a day. If the soil is moist enough, snails won't be able to absorb will be able to absorb water from the soil. So so it's very necessary to always keep your snail pen or your snail farm moist at all times. You should wet them or sprinkle water on the soil at all times. Okay, make sure the soil is always moist because as they are moving around, while they are moving around, they are absorbing water. Okay, you know it's their mouth they use in moving around, so they are absorbing water. Now 80% of the water they absorb comes from the ground, which is why you have to be wetting the ground all the time. Snails will need to drink water also. Apart from this one they are absorbing from the fruits, from the leaves, and from the ground itself, they also need to drink water, as in water that is set for them separately. And you have to use flat trays, flat, very very flat trays, to give them this water. Reason being that if the bowl you're giving them water with is deep, they can get drowned in it. Okay, so you use very flat trays where they can drink and go away. Sources of water should also be untreated water, either from rivers, streams, dug wells, rainwater, tap water, that doesn't have too much chemicals, that doesn't have too much chlorine. All right, we've talked a little about this before. Now let's talk about the benefits of formulated feeds. We have talked about the natural feeds available for snails. Let's look at these formulated feeds as well. Number one of the benefits is it improves performance of snails. Another benefit, it can be used to meet the specific requirements of the snail feed intake by using a single formula, which consists most of all snail nutrition, meaning you can have carbohydrate, protein, fat and oil, calcium. You can mix all of them together in one meal and just give them. You don't have to do carbohydrate separate, do this one separate, do that one separate. Like my own calcium, the calcium I give to my snails, I don't give them any other formulated feeds, because I have everything in one, including limestone, everything. I have them in one, so it's easier to just give them one meal and it's a balanced diet. All right. Now it can be easily measured in the right proportion needed by snails to avoid overdose or assumptions. That is, if you're giving them one after the other, like you want to give them carbohydrates separate, you want to give them protein separate, you have to measure them. Okay, and like I said, the sources where you buy them from, they've already done those measurements for you, so it's quite easy. Now it is good for commercial production of snails, because snails could reach a reasonable size in time for onward sales, meaning your snails will grow faster. It can be stored for a long period, unlike your leaves, your fruits, concentrates, or the ones you can call it concentrate or you can call it formulated feeds. They can be stored for a very long time because they are dry and they are well blended. Okay, all you need to do is store them in a dry, cool place and they will stay for long, can even last for up to 2 years. All right, now precautions to be taken when formulating snail feeds. Most times I advise my beginners, those who are just starting your snail farms, these are not really necessary for you right now. Okay, just buy and start first. But if you say you want to try it, there's no problem, which is why you're getting the training. Okay, so precautions: one, avoid using adulterated or moldy or infested ingredients. Like I said, be careful of the kind of fruits or whatever that you bring. Like, let's say you want to use you want to use tubers. Don't use tubers that have gone bad or that are rotten, that has maggots in them. Don't use moldy food, like even the ones that are already prepared. Maybe you've kept it in a place for like 6-7 months, but the place is not dry, so it's getting wet. Now it's stale, like muco has started coming out. You can't be giving your snails those kind of food. Okay, now another thing, the ingredients must be properly dried. Since it's a formulated feed that will be blended, it must be properly dried. For some of the shells that we use, we even go as far as burning them. Okay, we don't go as far as burn. After drying them, we still burn them before we take them to the mill to grind them to powder form. Now be sure that the ingredients are weighed correctly. All right, the feed must be grounded to the finest particle, which is to the finest powder. Right, the attendant or the manager must be present at the mill, at the feed mill. Okay, you should be there for you to see what they are doing, basically because you too would want to do it in the future. You would want to, some persons are making a living out of just selling these concentrated feeds, so you might want to do it in the future, but you would have to learn from people who are doing it right now. So be present there. All right, now The finished feed must be stored in a well-ventilated, dry place. That is after blending. After blending everything and you bring them to come and store, the place you're storing it should be highly ventilated and it should be dry. Water should not be touching it. Okay, requirements for feed formulation. The nutrient requirements of the snails must be known before a good formulation can be achieved. The very cost of the necessary feed ingredients must be known for effective cost management. The nutrient composition of each feed ingredient is essential. The availability of the feed ingredient. As pointed out before, little knowledge of arithmetic is also required, okay? Now, the state, which is the health or stages of production of the animal, must be known as well. Like we said, the hatchlings need their own percentage, growers need their own percentage, and adults need their own percentage. Now, we have gone through many steps to produce our individual snail feeds. Now, let us see the quantity of each snail feed ingredient. To have a whole balanced diet, this is the kind of measurement we do in kilograms. Okay, maize 31.3, groundnut cake 10, soybean meal 25, fish meal 4, wheat offal 16, palm kernel cake 4.2, oyster shell 8.5, 8.05, bone meal 1.2, premixed vitamins and minerals 0.25. When you sum this all up, it will give you 100%. Now, this oyster shell can be replaced by egg shell, can be replaced by snail shell, okay, and so on and so forth. That is why I say when you're just starting off, don't bother too much about these ones. It might even confuse you at the end of the day. Now, note that with all the above ingredients and their different formulations in kg, you can get your snail feeds less costly. Okay, like if you're doing it yourself, even though the stress will be much, it will be less costly, because if you're buying it from somebody who has already done it, definitely it will be more expensive. Okay, now for those that don't have the capital or time to formulate their own feeds, I'll be showing you other methods in subsequent classes, like how to purchase it, and then in time how you can start doing it for yourself. So let's call it a day for today. This is all I have for formulated feeds. We'll do a breakdown of all other snail feed nutrient sources in the subsequent classes. Now, like I said before, watch this video 4, 5, 6, 7 times if you must, so that you understand everything. And each of the videos you watch, if you have any question, go to the support group and drop your questions, because as you know, this group is locked so that the messages can be intact, so that other messages will not just come and fill up the whole space. I want this group to be only for the training videos. So you go to the support group and drop your questions, and I'll definitely answer your questions. Now, what I would suggest is this: as you're starting this day one, get a book and a pen. You can even write it in your notepad on your phone. Any question that comes across you, write it down. Okay, write it down, because there are some questions you might have now that you're watching day one. That question might be resolved in day 2. Okay, it might even be resolved in day 4. So just write the question down as you're watching. Finish all of these trainings, all of the videos, before you start asking your questions, because you will see that at the end of the day, maybe even the questions you wrote down have already been answered in some other videos. So finish all of them, and if your question is not still answered, then you can ask me and I will answer gladly. Okay, all right, so see you all in the next video, and please and please make sure you understand everything. If you don't, go through it again. All right, bye bye.